When your cat suddenly bites you, what do you think it means? For most people, the answer is simple. They assume the cat is angry, maybe aggressive, maybe in a bad mood. But the truth is often much more complicated than that. In many situations, a cat's bite is not about aggression at all. It's a reaction to something happening in their body, their environment, or the way they are being touched. And if we misunderstand that message, we can accidentally make the situation worse without realizing it. Cats don't have long explanations the way humans do. They can't tell you what they're feeling with words. Instead, they rely on a small set of signals: body posture, ear position, tail movement, vocal sounds, and sometimes, when everything else fails, a bite. So if a cat reaches the point where they bite, it usually means something important happened just before that moment. Let's start with one of the most common situations every cat owner has experienced. You're petting your cat. Everything seems calm. They're lying next to you, maybe even purring, and then suddenly, without warning, they turn their head and bite your hand. To many people, it feels confusing. One moment the cat seemed happy, and the next moment they reacted as if something went wrong. It can feel almost personal, like the cat suddenly changed their mind about you. But what actually happened in most cases is much simpler. Your cat didn't suddenly snap. They asked you to stop, and you didn't notice. Cats have what scientists call a sensory threshold for physical contact. In other words, there is a limit to how much touching their nervous system wants to tolerate at any given moment. Some cats enjoy long petting sessions. Others only tolerate a few minutes before the sensation becomes too intense. And the tricky part is that the signals showing that limit are extremely subtle. Researchers studying feline behavior have found that most cats display several warning signs long before they ever bite. The problem is that these signals are easy for humans to misunderstand. For example, the tip of the tail might begin to flick slowly. The ears might rotate slightly backward. The muscles under your hand may become just a little bit tense. None of these movements look dramatic. In fact, many people assume they mean the cat is still relaxed. But in the language of cats, these are early signals that stimulation is building up too much. Petting triggers nerves in the skin, and over time, those nerves can become overstimulated. What began as pleasant contact can slowly turn uncomfortable or irritating. When the small warnings are ignored, the cat eventually reaches their limit. At that point, the bite is not an attack. It's the final message. Stop. Think of it less like aggression and more like a pressure release valve. The cat has already tried communicating through body language. When those signals don't work, the bite becomes the fastest way to end the interaction. The good news is that this problem is surprisingly easy to prevent once you know what to watch for. Instead of focusing on how long you want to pet your cat, start paying attention to the first few minutes of the interaction. Watch their tail, watch their ears, feel the tension in their body. If you notice the smallest shift, tail twitching faster, ears turning sideways, muscles tightening, pause and remove your hand. Let the cat decide whether the interaction continues. Ironically, stopping earlier often builds more trust than continuing longer. Your cat learns that you respect their limits, which makes them more comfortable returning for affection later. But not every bite during interaction means the cat wants distance. Sometimes the reason behind the bite is something completely different. In fact, there is another situation where the problem isn't about boundaries at all. It's about play. Have you ever noticed how some cats attack hands the same way they attack toys? You might be sitting on the couch, moving your fingers slightly, and suddenly your cat pounces as if your hand were a small animal. At first, it might seem funny. When kittens do this, their tiny bites barely hurt. Many owners laugh and continue playing that way. But over time, something important happens inside the cat's brain. They begin to associate human hands with prey. When cats are young, their brains are constantly learning what counts as something to chase, grab, and bite. Any object that moves quickly can trigger their hunting instincts. If your hands are the object that wiggles, taps the floor, or playfully pushes them, the cat's hunting system locks onto that movement. From their perspective, they are not attacking you. They are responding to prey behavior. And once that association is formed, it can continue into adulthood. Studies examining cat play behavior have found that cats who frequently play with human hands instead of toys are far more likely to bite during normal interactions later in life. In other words, the cat didn't become aggressive. They were trained, without anyone realizing it, to treat human skin like part of the game. There is also another detail that accidentally reinforces the behavior. When a cat bites during play, most people react instantly by pulling their hand away. To us, this feels like the natural response to avoid pain. But to a cat's hunting brain, something very different just happened. The prey tried to escape. And in nature, fleeing prey triggers an even stronger chase response. So instead of discouraging the bite, the sudden movement makes the situation more exciting for the cat. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require consistency. Hands should stop being part of play entirely. Instead, use toys that create distance between your skin and the cat's teeth. Wand toys, feathers on strings, or small moving objects work much better because they allow the cat to chase, pounce, and bite something that isn't you. If your cat suddenly targets your hand during play, the best response is often the opposite of what instinct tells you. Instead of pulling away quickly, hold your hand completely still. When the prey stops moving, it becomes far less interesting to the cat. Over time, this helps break the association between hands and hunting. Within a few weeks of consistent play with proper toys, many cats naturally shift their focus away from human skin. But even play-related bites are not the only reason a cat may suddenly react with their teeth. Sometimes the explanation has nothing to do with play, boundaries, or behavior at all. Sometimes the bite is the only way a cat has to tell you that something in their body hurts. And that possibility is often the one that surprises owners the most. Now, there is another reason a cat might suddenly bite you, and this one is often the hardest for owners to realize. Because sometimes the bite isn't about behavior at all. Sometimes it's about pain. Cats are incredibly good at hiding discomfort. In the wild, showing weakness can make an animal a target for predators or rivals. Because of that, many animals evolve to mask pain as much as possible. Domestic cats still carry that instinct. A cat can continue eating normally, walking around the house, and behaving almost exactly the same as usual, even while dealing with something physically wrong. To the human eye, everything appears fine. But there is one moment when that hidden discomfort can suddenly reveal itself. The moment you touch the wrong place. Maybe you were scratching behind their back like you always do. Maybe you tried to pick them up the same way you have done 100 times before. And suddenly your cat bites you sharply. It can feel shocking, especially if that cat has never bitten you before. But in many cases, that reaction is not anger. It is a reflex to protect a painful area. Conditions such as arthritis, dental infections, muscle strains, urinary problems, or even small injuries from an awkward jump can create sensitive spots in the body. These issues are not always obvious during normal movement. However, when pressure is applied directly to that area, the cat's nervous system reacts immediately. The bite happens in an instant, not as a punishment, not as an act of aggression, but as a message that something hurts. One important clue owners should watch for is a change in behavior that appears suddenly. If a cat who has always enjoyed being touched in a certain spot suddenly reacts defensively, that shift can be meaningful. You might notice that your cat flinches when you touch their back, or they avoid being picked up, or they react sharply when you brush a certain part of their body. These small changes can sometimes be the only early signs of a medical problem. Because cats are so good at masking discomfort, a single bite during contact may be the only warning they give before the issue becomes more serious. When biting behavior appears out of nowhere, especially during normal petting or handling, it can be a good idea to pay closer attention. In some cases, a simple veterinary check can reveal problems that would otherwise remain hidden for months. But pain is not the only powerful trigger for sudden bites. Another common cause is fear. And fear responses can happen incredibly fast. Have you ever reached toward your cat and they bit you almost instantly, before you even had time to understand what happened? There was no slow buildup, no obvious warning, just a quick reaction. In that moment, your cat's brain may not have been thinking at all. It may have been reacting. When animals feel threatened, Their nervous system switches into what scientists often call survival mode. This is the same automatic response that prepares the body to either escape danger or defend itself. In that state, reactions happen in fractions of a second. Your cat isn't evaluating whether you are their owner. They aren't thinking about your intentions. Their brain is simply responding to what feels like a threat. Loud noises, sudden movements, unfamiliar people, or even a change in the environment can trigger this response. Sometimes the trigger is so small that humans don't notice it at all. A chair scraping loudly across the floor, a door slamming unexpectedly, a sudden reach toward the cat's body. If the cat feels cornered or unable to escape, biting becomes the fastest way to create distance between themselves and the perceived danger. Usually, you can see the signs of fear if you look closely. The body may become low and tense. The ears flatten tightly against the head. The eyes appear wide with large pupils. Sometimes the fur stands up along the back. These signals are not signs of a mean cat. They are signs of an animal that feels overwhelmed. When fear is the cause, the worst response is trying to chase the cat, grab them, or force comfort through physical contact. To the cat, this only confirms that the danger is still present. Instead, the best solution is often the simplest one. Give them space. Allow them an escape path. Let them retreat to a quiet area where they feel secure. Once their nervous system settles down, many cats will return on their own terms. Fear-based bites are not personal. They are the body's way of restoring safety. But now we come to the final type of bite, one that surprises almost everyone when they learn about it. Because sometimes a bite doesn't mean anger. It doesn't mean fear. It doesn't mean pain. Sometimes it means something completely different. Affection. This kind of behavior is often called a love bite. And if you have ever experienced it, you might remember how confusing it felt at first. You are sitting quietly, your cat is curled in your lap, they are purring softly, everything feels calm and peaceful. And then suddenly they gently nibble your finger or hand. The bite is not hard, it doesn't break the skin, and the cat doesn't run away afterward. Instead, they stay exactly where they are, still relaxed. What many people don't realize is that this behavior has roots in kittenhood. When kittens grow up together, they groom each other as part of bonding. During this grooming, small gentle nips are common. They are not meant to hurt. Instead, they are part of the social interaction between cats that trust each other. These tiny nibbles help strengthen relationships inside the group. So when an adult cat gives you a soft bite during a calm, affectionate moment, they may not be treating you like a human at all. They may be treating you like family. You can usually recognize a love bite by the cat's overall body language. Their muscles remain relaxed. Their ears are neutral. Their eyes may even be half closed. There is no tension, no attempt to escape, and no signs of fear. It's simply a small gesture woven into the moment of closeness. One of the biggest mistakes people make in this situation is reacting too strongly. Pulling your hand away suddenly, shouting, or scolding the cat can confuse them. From their perspective, they were expressing comfort and trust. The sudden reaction can feel like rejection. A calmer response often works better. Staying relaxed and allowing the moment to pass keeps the interaction peaceful and reinforces the bond your cat is trying to create. When you step back and look at all these possibilities together, something interesting becomes clear. A cat's bite is not a single message. It can mean many different things depending on the context. A request to stop, an invitation to play, a reaction to pain, a response to fear, or even a small expression of affection. The key to understanding it is not just the bite itself. It's everything happening around it. Your cat's body language, the situation, the moment that came right before it. Once you start noticing those details, something fascinating happens. The bites that once felt confusing begin to make sense, and instead of seeing them as random acts of aggression, you begin to see them for what they really are. Another small piece of the quiet language your cat has been using with you all along.